Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Today we are taking a look at a new release from Warcradle Studios called the Zhanmadao battlefleet set. This was kindly sent to me by Warcradle Studios for review. As I said, I really liked that look of the fortress, and they were kind enough to send me one in advance so I can do this review. For full disclaimer, I did also purchase another set for myself just because I really liked what was in there. Traditionally, this box comes with a sleeve that you can simply slide off, and then we can move on to the different contents of this box. It comes with in total 16 SRS bases, because the Zhanmadao fortress is a sort of carrier as well, and on top of those bases you get 2 flight stem stands, which doesn't sound like a lot, but this box really is geared towards making the Zhanmadao fortress and 2 smaller ones. And you can definitely see that when you're looking at the sea bases made here. So buyers beware, if you're buying this to make 6 smaller fortresses, you will have to buy some additional sea bases, but those are available at the Wayland store as well. Inside you will find 6 different sprues, and on those 6 different sprues we find all the parts to make either the Zhanmadao battle fortress or 2 of the smaller flyers that you can build. Each sprue comes with an SRS token, because, like I said, the Zhanmadao is a carrier, and the Qinshao, one of the builds you can make for the individual fortress, also is. It comes with a large central platform, along with a couple of neat little dragon heads, which are Hawkyangs that you can see here, and a repulsion generator. Now that repulsion generator is needed if you're building the Zhanmadao fortress, because it is used on the underside of the whole thing. It also comes with 2 parts that connect the 4 fortresses together to make the large Zhanmadao, and for the first time we're seeing a Great Wall generator on this sprue, which is neat to see as well. In terms of other weapon systems, there are not that many. There are 2 dojos coming with it, and only a single heavy rocket battery. So this doesn't exactly come with a lot of different weapon options, and I suppose they sort of expect you to use those from the many different sets available to them. On top of these you will find a fully detailed flight deck, but don't be too intimidated by it. You do not necessarily have to paint this one up, but I'm happy that they've included the detail on these, because if you want to make conversions with this set, you will definitely be able to see that inside, or you can see the inside if you're using this particular part. It comes with a small gap through which the different aircraft take off, and there's 2 of those found on this sprue that you can use. These are the walls for the inner fortification, and the outer fortification can either have the fully closed ones, or they can use, as you can see here, or they can use the one with the gap as shown there. It is repeated twice on each sprue, which is enough for either the Zhanmadao or to make the Qinshao carrier for your Empire fleet. The full walls can either be armed with Hawkyangs, or they can be armed with broadsides, as you can see on this sprue, and they sort of slot into those squares seen on the full outside walls. You get 4 of them, so you can go for a structure that is completely armored and is more of the battleship. That small part there is the thing that connects the different fortifications on the outside and completes that part. Other than that, there are many different special parts and roofs that you can see forming the inner structure, and I think it's going to be easier to paint up if you think about doing a couple of sub-assemblies as well, which is also the reasoning for this video. In addition to these sub-assemblies, we're going to have to make a sub-assembly of the inner part, which comes with 4 of these parts. So each sprue, you need 4 of them to make the Zhanmadao, is going to have 1, and you can connect them together. The first step is to cut out the major part, this central part, but you do have to be careful that you remove all of the nubs on these. These were slightly difficult to remove because you don't want to end up cutting away in too much detail, and that outside line is visible when the model is completely built. These then have to be connected with the bottom part of those interconnecting bits that you first cut out, and it can be sort of assembled on any one side of those squares. You don't really have to mind how you're putting or which direction the aircraft are facing, because if you're building a Zhanmadao you won't be seeing them anyway. And then finally there's this central part, which is going to be taking the big flight stem that is going to be used to hold the Zhanmadao fortress up in the air. After it's all been assembled, it pretty much ends up looking like this. Again, fully in detailed interior that you don't necessarily see, but more importantly the fully detailed exterior. To give a bit more strength to the whole structure, we're going to be using the top of the connecting parts, and you also need to cut out the 4 walls of that central generator. These slide together rather easily with a peg system and a hole system, so you just glue all 4 of those parts together. And in order to glue those strengthening parts together, you sort of have to do a bit of a dry fit, like I'm trying to do here, because it is a bit fiddly to get them to line up, so best do a first test for that one. But those holes are going to be lining up with the pegs, and once they click into place like they have here, you're going to get a much more solid structure than you've had before. If you're assembling the full floor plan, if you will, from the previous step, you do really want a nice flat surface so that it can all stand together. Then it's on to moving to making the different outside fortifications of each corner. Now it starts by gluing those 2 parts together to create them, and you will also need to glue together the walls onto that. These walls have holes in them, and they slot onto the pegs of the central platforms, well, rather the outside platforms, so it's not that hard to do. In order to create the 4 corners of each piece, you will have to match one with holes and one with pegs, and they create a simple assembly that way that you can find on each of the 4 corners of that central platform. Now, the central tower slots in rather easily. If it slots in and you just push it in, it held together just fine. I mean, I am keeping it off and not gluing it yet for ease of assembly and painting rather at a later step. And yeah, once the outside walls, the outside fortifications are made, they can also easily slide in. Now for these fortifications you need 2 of the ones with the hole in them that are normally used to launch the fighters, but you need to use those parts in conjunction with the connecting parts. So make sure you have both of them together and that they are pointing to the inner part of the fortress. The full walls need to go on the outside part, so make sure you don't mess that one up when you're making that construction. You need 2 outer walls with holes in it and 2 outer walls without touching each other before you can place it in there. Once that's done, you get a couple of extra holes that will fit the inner fortification, which is the part that you're doing next after you've done this 4 times. There is a small matter though of putting that outside wall of it along with the launch platform on there, but that one is a rather simple step. To make the inner fortifications, you have to sort of slide these different wall bits together, seen here, so they form a corner. You will see that there's one with a slit in it and one that just has a hole in it so you can slide it together. These go onto that central platform, and make sure you don't glue this one upside down. It was a mistake I almost made the first time around. Once you've made all 4 of them, they should just slot in nicely into those 4 holes. Again, I'm not gluing these like I did with the central tower, because it's going to be much easier to paint the model if you just leave them on. Those 4 holes really do line up lovely, so it's going to be quite easy to put them on. Then there's just a bit of detail, like putting on the little towers, but I'm pretty sure you can figure that one out. I also leave those off for ease of painting. And talking about painting, this is how I will be painting them up. My Empire Force has this sort of yin-yang scheme where the Chinese are painted in black and red, and the Japanese are painted in white and red. And as a little bonus, there's a few of the models that I've painted up so far for my Empire Force. As you can see, there's quite a lot more Japanese elements to them now, and there's definitely going to be, because I also bought the Hachiman. If you want to see how these get painted up and see a little review of that, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel for future updates.